Good afternoon, everyone. So, as you all know, myself, Aslam. I was previously EC Groupian. So, I'm glad I'm back with another training. Hopefully, this will be a interactive and interesting one. Let's get started. So, the today topic is, most of us know what is GitHub Copilot, and some of us already using it. The today topic going to be focused on tips and tricks, how effectively we can use GitHub Copilot in our daily workflow. As a developer, we do different things at a different time and different day. As a AI assistant or pair programmer, how a GitHub Copilot will enhance your productivity and make most of it. Because Copilot is a paid one. It starts at where individual it starts at $10 a month, and for business it's a different one. But anyhow, we are paying money, right? So we have to make use of it as much as possible. So this session is aimed at how we can leverage and what are the pitfalls or mistakes we can make. As a AI assistant, it would only work how we are asking, how we are prompting to make it work. So that is the biggest driving factor. So we will look into it one by one, and then we'll see how it goes. So this is a boring introduction, but even I know it is a boring. Why I added here is to emphasize, it's not a different than any AI model. So you have to consider that as a AI model so that you can have a idea how to leverage. Most of us started using ChatGPT, for our personal things or official things like asking for an email template or to learn new things. When you start using ChatGPT, it will not give perfect answer unless you given a perfect prompt, right? It will forgive your mistake, grammatical mistake or spelling errors. That will be forgiven. But it is important that your prompt explicitly tell your intention. Otherwise, you will get a wrong answer, right? Other than that, there are some chances ChatGPT will have wrong information or wrong training. That's another thing. But in majority, how well your prompt is formed, that will affect the outcome of the chat, right? That is not the same thing goes for Copilot, because Copilot is a generative pre-trained language model like any LLMA. So it's based on a model from OpenAI known as Codex. It's trained on the vast majority of open source available at their platform GitHub that made Copilot possible. There are several alternate available that also we know, right? Amazon Code Whisperer, Replit. There are several competitives available, but the edge GitHub is it hosts the largest open source repository of the planet. More than 90 million people are using, out of which most of them are open source. that leverage. So it is available in several IDE that we are all familiar, like Visual Studio and NeoVim and JetBrains. That So even at the GitHub also, what they are considering the Copilot as a pair programmer or assistant or Copilot. So that's where the the Copilot comes from. It's a pair programmer, but it's a AI pair programmer. So under the hood, the Copilot, how it runs is, it will draw context from your command and the existing code, and the training it had previously, or they will keep on improving. All right. So everything is there, but you should drive the Copilot to achieve your intention. It's not the way around. You cannot ask like a ChatGPT. You can ask, right? I want to develop a to-do application. That if you have a paid version, maybe 90% of that can be achieved in a single prompt, right? You can ask ChatGPT to assist you to write a whole application, to-do application. But in GitHub Copilot, it is little different. You will have to do your baby steps. You will start with your intention, right? I will show in the next screen. For example, right? You can, as I said, if you want to develop a to-do application using ChatGPT, you will go to the prompt and I want to develop a to-do application using Next.js or whatnot. It will show, it will show the the way you can do, and then most of the time it will match the intention about 60 to 70%. You will do as it says, and then you will add more prompt, or you will revisit your prompt, then you will achieve the goal. Whereas the Copilot, you will have to do this in a multiple step. You cannot do that in a single step. For example, if I am doing the same to-do application in Copilot in my preferred IDE, I will start with my the end goal. That is, I want to develop a to-do application with add, edit, and mark complete, and those things, in a typical to-do application. That will be the thing. Then that will give you a skeleton of a React application or Next.js application. It will not have the full implementation yet. Then you will add how you would do in a without Copilot. How will you do? You will add to-do list component, list of to-dos you want to do, and then you will add button component, and then add functionality, edit functionality, delete functionality. You will have to do everything in a multiple steps. So that is what. And also it should be very precise, and it should be very high level context. Okay. So you will have to keep that as a as a programmer. How will you develop application in a multiple step, right? You will not write everything at once and then you will start running it. You will not do that. You will have a skeleton of application first, and then you make sure that it's almost perfect, and then you will add functionality in multiple iteration, right? The same approach, if you take on while using Copilot, that will be more effective. Rather, you want to achieve this your intention or goal in a single step, it will be frustrating. And it will also, the Copilot will not perform well. So it will be trial and error, that's also will come. And also it needs to be a multi-step or multi-try, approach. That's the only way we can make use of Copilot most. Okay. For example, So the first trick is, if you are asking, if you are a senior developer or a team lead, whatever the position you hold, if you are asking a core developer or a junior developer, you will be very specific, right, about your intention. I want this functionality. If this is the logic, this should happen. If it is not valid, this should happen. It will be very specific. It will not be a vague thing, right? If you are giving very high level information, you will not get the exact application you are planning to do or you are intended to do. You should be very specific. The same goes for Copilot. For example, I'm putting a command like get data from API, right? With this information, it cannot write a function, the full function, because it doesn't have to which API or URL it should, get into, or how the data should be written, or any validation or any status code check. Those information are not there in the prompt, so it cannot do that, right? So if you are giving the prompt very specific in manner, it will be very effective. Whereas the second example, right, in this, I'm telling a Copilot to write a function that uses this JSON placeholder API to retrieve user data, right, and then convert that into a JSON and then return the data. So I'm very specific in the prompt. That enables Copilot to write more, usable method than this just a skeleton, right? This we can type it, maybe the same time that took us to type this text, we can do the same thing to type this function itself, right? We don't need empty function. Whereas this, this is worth for this, lengthy prompt, because it applied async await, and then how to convert a response to a JSON. Everything is inbuilt, written by Copilot itself. So you should weigh your prompt and the result. If your prompt is more specific, you will get a specific result for it. If your prompt is very generic or non-specific, it will be very less useful suggestion. So that is the prompt or the context in which your application is about. That's where the Copilot shines, right? Otherwise, it will not. So we will see that in. So to achieve this functionality, right, I have to try several prompts, write a function, call the function to display data. At last, all this prompt enabled the Copilot to write this method. It's a vanilla JavaScript using HTML, HTTP requests, HTML, HTTP requests to retrieve data, right? But it, so either you will have to improve your prompt in several steps, or make your prompt very specific to your use cases or your goal. Otherwise, I started with some random text, but my prompt contains context about my intention very less. It started suggesting, you want to do this, you want to do this. I accepted that prompt, and then finally it wrote this method. Okay, and then I tried, bit more specific. I added a bit more specific information to that prompt. Then it gave this code. it's a little better now, right? Here it's started, it's a very random one, what is localhost 8080 implies, but whereas this somewhat, usable code, I want to use JSON placeholder API, and then, but I want to, improvise more. Okay, what I want to achieve the same result. Okay, pass user ID and retrieve user data from JSON placeholder, right? But I want to use fetch API. Okay, then it was able to give this result. So, as you improvise your code, you will have to also improvise your prompt also. Then only you will get, the usable result. Otherwise, it will be very generic, or it will be not fit for your requirement. So that's what I'm saying. So be specific about your goal. Then Copilot can give you a better result. Okay. So another important point you have to aware of is you can direct Copilot by giving examples or giving more instruction. For example, to do that, you should do your research. For example, I'm writing a method to find out prime number from 0 to 100 or 0 to 10,000 or something. I'm asking Copilot to write a method for it. Then it would write a method. It will be usable. It will be it will work and it will run. Yeah, not a problem. But it will not. It may not be performant one. For example, to find out a prime number, for example, 0 to 10,000, you don't have to look through 0 to 10,000. You can look through 0 to square root of 10,000. It will be less doubts, right? So you will have to add those context also. Otherwise, it will not be a performant code. So this is because Copilot learns from you. When you start, it will be very, very generic responses. So this is a approach used by AI engineers to train a model. There are three types of learning. Make a training, that is zero-shot learning and one-shot learning and three-shot learning. So it's more like you're training the Copilot for your your job or for your work. So the existing training may not be fit. So you have to train your your Copilot model. How it is implemented, that I'm not sure, but in under the hood, it's a AI model. So you have to be aware of what is zero-shot learning and one-shot learning. It's nothing. It's more like if you have a toy is a very generic thing, right? Toy can be a bus, toy can be a teddy bear, but both are toy. So using this, yeah, kid can learn. This is also toy. This is also toy. This in a generic term, but specific. This is a bus. This is a teddy bear. Like this, we will be also training AI models. The same approach we can apply in Copilot. I will show that in the code. Okay. So initially, what I'm saying is create a method to list the first 10 prime numbers. So that is the prompt. Okay. So what is prime number that we know, right? Yeah, number, will be divided by 1 and itself, right? So that's all noun, and so it wrote this method. Okay. Then I added, this text, the same thing. Now this method is, rewritten using square root. So both will give the same result at the end, but but this will be more performant than the the previous one. Okay. Okay. So this is how, it's not like it can, Copilot can do everything. For example, you can ask Copilot to write some algorithm, a very complex algorithm, that's also fine. But you should also do your research. If you are exploring unknown territory, like some complex algorithm and all, you should have, the at least the outline of that algorithm. Otherwise, it will be the code given by Copilot will be very, it will be very less performance. So it may affect your application. If you know at least the outline, what are the pitfall that will affect the performance of the algorithm, those things you should do. Should do the research. With that, information, you can make Copilot to write, very fast code or performance code, whatever. Otherwise, it will be a very, LKG level, code. But sometimes in a first prompt itself, it would write, very elegant code or performance code. But most of the time, you may have to add examples or constraints so that it will write as per the your intention. Okay. 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 There are, smaller things that can be achieved with the Copilot's assistance, but they are powerful. For example, we may be doing a lot of repetitive things, right? Like, for example, your application is doing internet, INTL 18 kind of thing, that is, multi-language application. You may be creating a lot of localized strings, right? Initially, it will be only in English, but other other language also will be added in later things. For that, you will be using either Google or any other translation service. Switching between contexts is a very problem for any developer, right? I'm working on IDE. I'm creating one object of one text in English language that I can do without looking at anywhere. But I want to add same object, but with a different language, like French or Spanish, whatever the language you are going to support. For that, I will have to leave my IDE and then go for Google or dictionary, whatever, the mean you want to use. But in that sense, Copilot can be effective, for example. So this is the only thing I wrote myself. I created an object for answer, key. The value will be answer English. Like that, I add a thing. But French and then Spanish, I don't know. These values, for example, it helped me to achieve this, without leaving the ID itself. Otherwise I would have to go search for, what is the French word for answer, what is the French word for question. I'm not sure what is the code for this, what is the actual languages, it spit it out. Okay, but we are leveraging it. So for these kind of a repeated thing, it will save you a lot of time, a lot of issue with context switching between, also as a developer, when you switching between context from ID to your browser, that's where your the time will spoil, right? You will start looking at something and then some link will come, some Wikipedia article about how the translation works or not. Then you will click on, you will go somewhere, you will waste 20 minutes or 30 minutes. That will happen. It's not a bad thing, that will happen. But even you will not know that the distraction. But with the help of Copilot, you can achieve everything within ID itself without leaving your ID. Like that, I want to create something like list of countries. For example, I want to show a drop down of country. In that, the display is the country name, whereas the value is the ISO country codes. That's a 2-letter country code for every country. That's where how the data should be stored. If I want to achieve this, either I will have to download some JSON data, convert that into my preferred language or whatever. If basically I was talking about doing repetitive things, that too after switching from your ID or your context. So in that sense, Copilot can be a helpful assistant, to rely on, like creating dictionary of things and list of things, that to noun things, noun, text, like states of India or countries and codes, some random colors or random text, Otherwise, we would have to go for something like lorem ipsum generator, that's all you can do. It's not a bad thing, but without leaving ID is a main selling point for Copilots, like country codes, states, whatever other thing you've been doing repeatedly, that Copilot can be a good add on to achieve those. Okay. The next item that we can leverage Copilot to do is for writing our test. Like most of us doing TDD, writing test is interesting for first time or first method. But if you are doing the most code coverage, for example, something we do 90+% code coverage, something does 40%. Based on that, you will have to write more tests and all. Then it will be boring thing, but you can leverage Copilot to automate that also. There are several blog posts and videos about it. I have given few links for it. I think, if needed, writing automated test also, or automating writing test also can be a separate training. We can talk about it there, but to due to the constraint of this time, I made this link here. We will plan and then we will have another session if required. Another thing is, writing regex, rejects expression. It's always hard for most of us. Either we will search for it, sometimes it work, it will not work. Most of the time you will not find regex in your preferred language. It may be available for JavaScript, but not for C# or Python, or the language you are looking for. But with Copilot assistance, you can do, for example, I wrote this prompt, and then it started giving this code to write, or make use of regex to validate phone number. Like, you cannot remember all this without mastering yourself in a regex, right? I'm not a master, so I rely on Google, so far long, but I'm started using Copilot now. And also, for example, another thing is I want to remove white space in a string, right? I want to make use of regex. So, and also you can do. Let's hope Copilot works well. Something like this, right? Without Copilot for this code, you may have to again go for context switching, those things. So this are all smaller thing, but it will definitely boost your productivity. Okay.
I would say 15 times less time it has taken, right?
Yes.
Instead of 10 minutes, you are spending like few seconds.
Yeah, that is the goal, and like a binary search, something like that, it would give. And also you can make use of Copilot to ask a technical question also. Somebody will think using this for interviews, right? So that's a cheating. So you can, usually where we will ask question, either Stack Overflow or somewhere forums, or you can start with Q colon and then something like for example, something like this. So you can keep on playing with it, and just to refresh our trainings that we had, and long back. If you are not sure about something, you can make use of Copilot as a learning tool. Can be there are infinite possibilities to and also it you can go for more different answer also, whatever you are interested in, you can accept that answer. So these are the things. Another thing is there is another extension by Copilot, I mean GitHub, known as GitHub Labs. Sorry, GitHub Copilot Labs. Once you install this extension, I think it's available in VS Code and also Visual Studio, I believe. Then you would get a funny looking icon, right? It's like a character from we call some fancy movie, alien like looking thing. With this, what you can do is you will have to select a method or part of your program and then go to that function. I had, yeah, you can ask Copilot to explain the code, because when you look at, especially with if you are learning new code, you are joining a new team, right? You cannot ask the team member or team team member will give you very high level explanation of the code repository, right? You cannot ask specific explanation of what this code is doing, but either you will have to run for it or debug it to see what it does. Otherwise, you can use this plugin to explain what it is doing. So it will take some time, and then it will say, let's start with 0. It will explain, one by one. You can give feedback about the explanation also. If you are satisfied, you can give great or unhelpful or incorrect. Okay. So this will be helpful in if you are exploring a new code or new language or new algorithm, this will be very helpful. And also this has language translation. If you selected something, this is written in JavaScript, you can convert this into Python, right? And also I think it supports these many language. Let's see how it will look in ABAP. What about C#? Right. So this will be helpful if you are working on for example, in our project we will be re-engineering or converting existing application from COBOL to C#. But some of the algorithm or some of the calculations, those things will not be aware of, or nobody can understand that. Either we will use explain functionality or language translation, which whatever works fine, we will take that and then work forward. So this is a nice little I think this comes along with Copilot license. I believe you will have to sign up I think terms of conditions, then you are good to go. Okay, so the additional steps are where how make the Copilot to shine, right? So as I said, iterate your prompts. That is the main thing, because either based on your prompt that is comments, or based on the context. That's how the Copilot works. Without context or comment or prompts, it will not work. So to achieve your goal, you will have to iterate your prompts. And also sometimes Copilot comes with multiple suggestions. You will have to switch between suggestion to select one before changing your comment. Also, it is advisable to iterate on the suggestion and to see if the second or the consecutive suggestions make more sense than the first one. So that's also need to be. Another thing is, currently, as far as I know, Copilot cannot access the unopened code. So, for example, if your project contains thousands of files, right, and you opened only one file, the context is unknown for Copilot. So you will have to open, at least the files needed to understand your context. What kind of standard you are using, what kind of variable naming convention you are using, what kind of code organization you are using. To understand that, you will have to open as much as files in the IDE so that Copilot can perform well. I don't have any live example for it, but you understand, right? You cannot open 1,000. That's also now, but you cannot expect opening 2 or 3 files that will feed the Copilot more information. That's also not true. So you will have to strike a balance between making your system slower versus making GitHub understand your context. So maybe 50 files or 100 files based on your configuration and IDE performance. That's also needs to be taken care of. So keep opened relevant files in your IDE. For example, if you are working on React components, make sure that you have enough files open in the tabs so that it will understand there. If you are working on a backend component and it's a C#, make sure that too in a business logic or service method, make sure that you have enough files open in tab IDE so that it will understand and then provide and use predictable pattern. Like, for example, Copilot learns along with you, so it keeps that in memory or database, whatever under the hood they are using. So don't change your prompt patterns. Like if you are using one kind of a pattern, stick to that, so that, and you trained it well, and then stick to that pattern so that it can perform well. It will be where it will be different for everyone based on your language you are working on, or the part of the application you are working on. So to make sure that use predictable pattern. So with that predictable pattern, you can let the Copilot do its own thing rather than fighting with it. Keep on changing the prompt. You can improve the prompt, but you cannot change the word you are using or the structure of the prompt you are using. You cannot keep on changing it. That will make the Copilot to hallucinate or something like that. Gives wrong output. So make predictable patterns in the prompt. And other thing, right? If you are more leans towards make use of Copilot without comments, use better good practices like naming convention, method convention, organization, code organization, whether it by namespace or feature, whatever the architectural pattern you're using, be consistent about it so that the output from Copilot will be consistent. If your code or the context you are working having different standards or different coding styles, that will make Copilot to confuse and it will give a wrong output, which we don't want. That will frustrate us, and then we'll stop using Copilot. So we will have to strike a between between making use of Copilot at which level, and also at the end, consider Copilot as a very junior developer. Even though it's produce expert level code, but always consider the code generated by Copilot as a junior developer level code. If your code is written by a junior developer, you will review it, and then you will write unit test against it. You will make sure that it works well. Those things you'll do. So it is good as that data. It is have been tried on. It never create new, or it create new data. It's using the existing learning and giving the output. So you cannot entirely rely on Copilot. So you will have to strike a balance between it. And then if you start using it in regularly, you will find a pattern for your language, for your project, and for which part of the project it works well, for which part of the product or project is not working well. You will strike a difference between that, and then choose wherever it shines, make use of it. Wherever it's not working well, just disable it. So with that, I think we can maintain productivity. Sometimes, some area like, one language, it didn't even given any output for translation, right? Don't fight for it. For that, it won't work. When you have a time, make a note of it, and then, when you have a time, you can try it out. But when you decided this is not a candidate for Copilot, don't use there. Wherever the places it works well, use it as much as possible. With that, I think you can maintain the productivity. Otherwise, there will be waste of time, or negative impact of GitHub. So those are the things I want to share today, and then I will hand over to Kavita to move forward.
Yes. Any questions?
I have a lot.
Yeah, please.
Hi, Aslam.
Yeah, go ahead.
Aslam, I was hoping that you will show the third pane in the labs, Copilot labs. There are a lot of tools, right? Brush tool, clean tool. Have you seen that?
Yes.
That was very interesting.
I think this is still in the development. So
yeah, I also noticed that sometimes it's coming, sometimes it's not coming.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
We can have a different single session on the labs itself.
Okay. So the second question is, how long have you been using Copilot?
Very less, because I'm not using this in our actual product or actual work. I'm using for my personal projects. I do have personal project or official project that.
Okay.
Not so. Maybe in a week, maybe less than 10% of my time.
Okay. Have you seen Copilot hallucinate?
I'm not, I've not used that much to, evidence any hallucination yet. But I have seen, it works in a way that's against this principle, right?
Okay.
It should not, spit out the code that is under, protected copyright or something like that. But it does. there are few lawsuits against it, all based on hallucination or kind of hallucination that observed. That's what
Okay.
yeah.
So the point you're making is treat it as a junior developer.
Yes.
Okay. I wouldn't know how to write a virus, but if somebody were to ask, will it write a virus?
Yeah, we can try it. There are some, maybe some, gods against, evil use of it, but I'm not sure how well it is protected.
Okay, all right. So when you say you try to maintain a predictable prompting mechanism with your Copilot so that it can learn, its learning is on the server, right? Nothing happens on your local thing, right?
Yeah, I'm not well aware of how the the architecture behind the pilot works, because I can share you a link. There's going to be a session on that explicitly.
Okay.
Microsoft Build conference. Some of the engineers who worked on Copilot going to be there and explain how under the hood how it works.
Okay.
We'll have more info on that. But I hope, or I believe it's mostly on the server. Yes.
Okay. Because the thing is, everybody is communicating with that central AI server. So how will one person's predictable prompting? It's a common intelligence, right? It's not a per person intelligence that it is creating. That's what I was thinking.
Maybe there will be a central knowledge storage or something.
Yeah.
And also maybe add on to that, there will be a personalized user-based information also.
Information also. Okay.
Yes.
Another question on the same line is that we learned that it is trained on all the millions of GitHub open source Copilot open source projects, right? So can we be sure that it is generating data code, or is it pasting code that it is already seen? You mentioned this is somewhere it is there inside the GitHub repository.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think mix of both, I believe.
Mix of both. Okay.
Sometimes we understand the context and it writes the code like yes, ChatGPT prompt would write, right?
Okay.
And also sometimes it's a copy paste.
Okay.
It's a kid would do.
Okay, good. Yeah, a lot of questions comes up. Thank you for the session, Aslam.